Hi, imagine that you have an incredible photographic memory and mathematical ability. You think you would be provided with a brilliant career and success. Alas, not everything is so simple. This guy named Will Hunting, for example, has not yet managed to find a use for his unique talent. But soon everything will change. With UZ Movie Recaps, like and subscribe. 20-year-old Will works at a prestigious place, the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. But there's just one thing. Instead of teaching higher math classes, the guy cleans the university hallways and in the evenings chills in bars with friends. One day Will notices a board in the hallway with a complex problem. It was placed there by a local math professor, Gerald Lambeau. He promised the one who proves the theorem by the end of the semester, publication in the university newsletter, and his immense respect. All day Will can't get the problem out of his head. He even leaves his best friend Chuck in the bar and hurries to his remote cabin to devote the whole evening to solving the theorem, and the guy succeeds. A couple of days later, the professor finds an anonymous solution on the blackboard. He can't believe that one of his students has solved the most difficult theorems so quickly, and he can't wait to find out who the genius is. Will is hanging out with his friends when suddenly the guys pass by a company that insults a girl. Will knows the ringleader. It's a guy who bullied him in kindergarten. He asks his friend to stop the car and gets out. Not thinking long, Hunting hits his old acquaintance right in the face, and between the two companies, there is a scuffle. When the cops arrive on the scene, friends try to pull Will away from the enemy, but it's too late. Professor Lambeau gives another lecture and tries to find out who proved the theorem. There is still no answer, so he gives the students an even more difficult problem, which he and his colleagues have been trying to solve for over 2 years. Will, meanwhile, gets out of jail before the court hearing and tries to solve this problem as well. Lambeau tries to catch up with Will, whom he mistakes for a vandal. After work, Hunting goes to a bar with his friends and tells them that he has been laid off. But Chuck tries to meet two hotties, pretending to be a student at a prestigious university. But he is ridiculed by the local smart guy. Will comes to the aid of his friend and puts the nerd in his place. One of the girls, Skylar, pays attention to him and leaves her phone number. Meanwhile, Professor Lambeau firmly decides to find the mysterious genius. He comes to the business office and learns the name of their former employee, Will Hunting. Later, he goes to a court hearing where Will, with the help of brilliant knowledge of law and sociology, defends himself. But because of the large number of priors, he is still sent to prison. After some time, to Will comes a visitor. It is Professor Lambeau, who informs that the judge, with the help of the former employee, Will Hunting. Will is sure that he does not need any therapy, but still agrees to the deal. At the meeting with the professor, the guy goes with pleasure. Will playfully cope with any tasks, and Lambeau is very pleased with him. But at the therapy, everything goes not so smoothly. The first psychologist Will brings Will to a white heat, remarks about his book. The second reproaches him for the method of hypnosis. The others are annoyed with sarcasm and jokes. After trying 5 first-class specialists, Lambeau almost gives up and decides to send his mentee to his fellow student. Sean McGuire, who seems to be the right man for the job. During the first session, Will behaves as usual, sneers and mocks. However, Sean does not give in to his provocations. Even when the guy says that the picture the therapist has drawn is full of shit, the psychologist does not lose his temper. After the session is over, Professor Lambeau sees that his friend is upset. He tells Sean that he can drop out, but the therapist tells him to bring him back in a week. Will, in the meantime, goes on a date with Skylar from the bar. She tells him that she inherited a lot of money from her father and now plans to go to Stanford University. The couple has a great night, ending with a kiss in a diner. Sean decides to spend it not in his office, but on a park bench. Will starts to be ironic again, but the therapist interrupts him, telling him that he has thought about what he said, and now he has something to say. In Sean's eyes, the young man is still a little boy who knows nothing about real life. He can memorize facts about all the artists in the world, but he has never left Boston and seen their work with his own eyes. He can recite a work about war, but he has never been on a battlefield. He can recite sonnets about love by heart, but he has never really loved or been vulnerable to a woman. But most importantly, Sharon himself will not know anything about the orphan's feelings until Will opens up to him. At the next meeting, Will is silent for an hour, but Sean is calm. He is sure that the guy is just testing him, and he turns out to be right. At the next session, Will breaks the silence and tells the psychologist a lewd joke. They have a conversation about relationships with girls, and Will tells him in passing that he recently went on a date. Sean wonders if the guy plans to go out with Skylar again, and Will makes an unexpected confession. He says he doesn't want to destroy the image of the perfect girl he has in his head. The therapist objects. He thinks that the guy is actually afraid of destroying his own ideal image. But that's what love relationships are all about, he says. The psychologist tells him that his own wife died of cancer not so long ago and shares her funny quirks. It's these that the therapist says he misses the most, and the real Will's wife is the one he's been missing the most. Will listens to the words and comes to Skylar's dorm. She is surprised to see him because the guy hasn't called for a long time but agrees to a date. The couple goes to a dog race and has a great time. The girl asks hunting where and how he grew up. Will replies that he grew up in Boston but lies about his family. The guy makes up a crazy story about his 12 older brothers. Worse, he has to promise Skylar that he'll introduce her to his family soon. The sessions with Sean meanwhile go on as usual. At another meeting, the guy asks the therapist when he realized his wife was the one. Sean says that he realized it at first sight. He tells the young man the amazing story of how he once got tickets to a unique baseball game but didn't go to it because he met a beautiful girl in a bar. Skylar continues to insist on getting to know Will's loved ones, but Will is still hesitant to tell the truth, so he decides to at least introduce her to his friends, led by Chuck. Contrary to his expectations, the girl fits in perfectly with the guys. Professor Lambeau meets Sharon at the diner to find out how he's progressing in therapy. He's not very interested in Will's relationship with his past. He's more curious about Will's future under his protectorate. Sean replies that he won't put pressure on the young man and that he should choose what he wants from life. The professor is angry and says that he has already brought Will together with the right people anyway, except that he doesn't know that the right people have been met by Chuck, who behaves completely inappropriately and blows the deal. Will, meanwhile, is enjoying the romance with Skylar, but she suddenly breaks his serenity with an unexpected offer. She calls him to California, where she plans to study. The guy immediately refuses, making up a million excuses. But Skylar insists. She is convinced that Will is just stuck in his own little world where he has no competitors and is afraid of new things. Then the boy boils over. He's sure Skylar's just playing him and he'll always be a fling for her because he's poor. The girl tells him in a heartbeat that if she could choose between a living father and his inheritance, she'd definitely choose the former. She's scared too, but she chooses to be honest with Will, and he doesn't. The young man objects, but then Skylar brings up his non-existent brothers. Eventually, Will loses his temper. He starts screaming that the girl doesn't really want to know the truth about him because he is an orphan who has been beaten and tortured all his childhood. Skylar, in tears, assures him that she would like to know everything about him, including the most intimate things. And then she confesses her love to him, but Will's heart is already closed. Will meets with Professor Lambeau. He is not happy about what happened at the meeting with the business partners and reprimands his mentee for being careless. Will boils up. He says he's not sure how much he needs this academic career, and talking to the professor is a torment because his mind is many times less sharp than his own. Lambeau says he expected Will to at least be grateful. They fight, and the guy leaves. After a while, he's invited to an interview at the National Security Agency, where he's promised a golden mountain and a terrific job. Will turns down this opportunity because he doesn't want to ruin the lives of ordinary people for the sake of someone else's geopolitical ambitions. Soon he meets Sean again. The therapist asks him if he has a friend to talk to and if he gets lonely. Will lists great thinkers like Kant and Nietzsche, and the therapist again reminds him that real relationships can only be built with living people. When asked what Will really wants out of life, he starts saying stupid things like he wouldn't mind laying bricks and working as a shepherd for the rest of his life. Sean realizes that the guy is just kidding and doesn't want to be honest with him and himself, and kicks the guy out of the office. Time passes, Skylar flies to California and Will works at a construction site with Chuck. A friend asks the guy what he's going to do next. Will replies that he's not going to spend his life solving stupid equations and being a lab rat. He plans to stay in Boston and hang out with his best friend for the rest of his life. But suddenly Chuck doesn't like this plan at all. The guy honestly tells Will that he's being a jerk since he decided to squander his talent. Moreover, Chuck